So I was reading a tweet from Brendan Turner, and it was saying basically your first deal won't make you rich, but it will change your life. And honestly, that's so true. So I want to take a little bit of time to talk about my first deal, not the one with Kevin. There's also a first one there, and we'll do another story about that one. But my personal first deal. It was a two-family house, Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and I learned a lot. And it changed my life, and that's what led into doing a lot of deals with Kevin. Stay tuned. I'll talk about it right now. And if you have any questions about anything I talked about, please leave them below and we'll get to them. As always, guys, we're two guys take on real estate. We bought hundreds of properties, foreclosure auction, from commercial, residential. We have a bunch of rentals, and we've made a lot of mistakes over the years, and we try to teach you from our mistakes. So let's get to it. All right, so what I want to talk about is my first deal, which was a two-family in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And I was very young. I was about 16 years old. And I just want to kind of go over exactly what transpired and how it worked out. Essentially, what happened was I got the bug because I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Who hasn't read that and who hasn't got really excited? But it didn't teach you anything, really. It just kind of got you all excited, motivated. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to do real estate. And so I want to really kind of get involved in it. And how do I do it? So I started analyzing deals. And wow, back then things were really cheap. I don't recall all the numbers, to be honest. It was far too long ago, almost 30 years ago. Well, yeah, pretty much 30 years ago. That's crazy. I'm old. Basically, I got into, excited about it. I found a deal, but I was 16, so I needed to work with my grandmother. And I also worked with another partner to partner up on a two-family that I found in Pittsfield, Massachusetts that was currently occupied, was rented. And I did the math, and the numbers seemed to all work, and it made money, right? Well, so piece of cake. Buy it, put a bank loan on it. We actually bought it with a bank loan. It was on the MLS. The unique thing about it was, so it was a side-by-side duplex, three bedroom. And so once again, it didn't change me, it didn't make me rich, but it sure changed my life and learning about it. So the one side was a normal rental, and sweet lady, she'd been there for years. And so she rented one side for whatever it was at the time, maybe $1,000. Maybe I think for some reason it sticks in my head like 800 something bucks for the rent for that her side. So wow, right now 3-bedroom charging over $2,000, but so I think it was around 800 bucks. And then the other side, which brought in more of the rental income, was essentially a boarding house, which you got to be really careful with those. There's a lot of town regulations, what you're allowed and not allowed. It was legal at the time, so I don't know what the regulations in Pittsfield, Mass now are, but back then it was allowed, and so it was 3 adult males, one each got a bedroom. There was a lot of issues, and that was the big thing in the learning period. So I was just thinking, wow, I was seeing big dollar signs. I'm like, all right, this is going to be great. Get a cash flow like crazy because these people are there, and we'll just hire out someone to do all the little work, maintenance, because I was living down in the Great Barrington area. So I was probably about a good 25 minutes away, 30 minutes away. I didn't want to go out there. I did have some knowledge about general rehab and stuff like that. And my grandfather was a plumber, and so we have always helped him and stuff like that. So I had some knowledge, but I hadn't, the hands-on, and just all the books I'd read it talked about subbing it out and stuff like that. So I'm happy to do that. And so I was like, focus that. But I partnered with someone. Their perspective was different. That was the first mistake I learned, that is partnering with someone. You need to make sure you're on the same page and what your view is. And we didn't really talk about it beforehand other than getting all excited about buying real estate together. They wanted to do more stuff hands-on. I didn't because I wanted to look for the next deal. So that was the first mistake / learning experience that we had on that. And, we were button heads quite a bit through the time, but, we worked through it, no big deal. The next thing was the fact that, like I said, this was a boarding house. And it's one thing to deal with tenants in general, but now you're also dealing with the tenants living there and them disagreeing about the common area. That honestly was a full-time job. It wasn't just a set it and forget it, which is what I thought. But there was constant issues with one of them who I think had some kind of mental illness or something like that, and him not happy with the others. And he would be peeing in the toilet, and then he wouldn't pee in the toilet, and it would pee down the side and leak into the kitchen. So we were constantly fixing stuff and having to talk to him and having to work with his nursing aide and stuff like that. And it was just a fight after a fight after a fight. And honestly, based on the time that my partner went out there and worked on stuff, it wasn't cash flowing. And that was, one of the first things that we learned is, just because it says so on a spreadsheet doesn't mean realistically what it's going. And especially in areas that might have, more C class, and that was one of my first C class properties, is that C class, the maintenance is generally a lot higher than you're putting down if you're putting 10%, stuff like that. It often is a lot more than you think, unless you're able to really drastically improve the property, focusing on obviously, we bought this as is with the existing tenants and the existing structure. But if you can, really kind of tenant proof, I like to say, which is making things like 3-piece caulkless tubs, all these things to kind of really make it as durable as possible. And then also training the tenant to not, think of you as a mom and pop, so that they're not coming to you for every little thing, and they kind of handle some things on their own. Those are the kind of things that, you got to kind of work out and train through. Or if you can find, more of a B class tenant. So what would have been ideal is finding maybe some working class people, since we were next to the hospital. So if I was to do that property again, I would have fully renovated them, probably moved the people out, fully renovated the units, and then focused on getting working professionals right from the hospital, because it was a walking distance to the hospital. So that would have been, honestly, that would have been the play to go. Or even doing maybe traveling nurse situation. That would have been another really good approach rate on that property. But I didn't know that. These are all things I've learned for the years of experience now. But it was because of that first property. That's really kind of back to that tweet that Brendan Turner put out, is that first property taught me all these things. It got me excited. It's what led into all the other properties that we own today, the flips we're in right now, all the foreclosure auctions we bought and won, all the rental properties, the self-storage, the car wash, all these things. It was all because of this first property. This is what led to eventually finding Kevin and talking to Kevin and convincing Kevin to pull together $5,000 each and buy another 2-family, which I don't still realize why, or he believed that I had this vision, but he believed me, and we did it. We made it happen through lots of headaches and lots of trial and error, but it's been successful, and we're now standing where we are with hundreds of rental units and stuff like that, and different businesses. It was all because of this one property. So what I'm trying to say is, I guess it all can start with one property. It doesn't have to be a massive, large property, stuff like that. And if anything, it might be better to start smaller so that you can learn on it. Or if you have a team of people to work with, and so that you don't have to take on all that risk, and you can then kind of grow from there. But the key is also getting started. Don't sit on the sidelines forever. You need to get started. Too many property have the analysis paralysis, they call it, is where you're analyzing every deal. The numbers aren't always going to be what the spreadsheet says. That's the first thing you got to understand. But if you can make sure you weather the storm, put in a lot of buffer for making mistakes, because you're going to make mistakes. Hopefully you can learn for a lot of them that we've made, so you don't make the same ones. But you're going to make mistakes. To expect is not to make any mistakes and that everything's going to work out perfectly is a little naive. And I would say, it's better to make mistakes early on the small deals, so that when you start, looking to scale and get more properties, if you want to kind of grow that portfolio, then, you'll have learned early and kind of fine-tuned all your systems so that you can really be successful. That was my first property, 2-family, Pittsfield. Like I said, I've learned tons of it from it, and it's really helped grow our portfolio where it is today. And I am so thankful for having learned those lessons early. And once again, like I said, we keep learning new lessons on every new venture that we start. Thanks so much. If you have any questions about anything I talked about, love to answer them. Leave a comment below. And if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe, because we appreciate all those who follow us and like our videos. So thank you so much, and have a great day.